Relax, Tom. Nobody pays luxury rates to look at a swamp. That was what my neighbor, Grant Holloway, said after he drained Willow Pond behind my house. He called it standing water. The county called it a recorded drainage feature. And by Friday morning, his garage permit was frozen. His rental manager was canceling bookings in front of the county. And one watershed map had turned his little trench into a $120,000 mistake. By sunrise, the pond was half empty. The bank was cracked with mud. The roots of my old willow tree were exposed. A fresh trench had been cut through the berm behind the water, and Willow Pond was bleeding into a roadside ditch that ran past Grant's new garage pad. Grant thought he had solved a drainage problem. What he had really done was create one. So before you pick a side, ask yourself this. Would you fight him with a shovel, or let the county map drain his wallet? My name is Thomas Whitaker. Most people call me Tom. I am 67 years old. I have lived on Whitaker Road my entire life. My house is not impressive. It is a one-story brick ranch with a sagging porch, an old gravel driveway, and a garage full of tools that still smell like my father's hands. But behind that house is Willow Pond, or at least there was. My father maintained that pond for 40 years. My mother planted the willow tree beside it when I was 14. And long before Grant Holloway ever saw a rental profit in my backyard, the county had mapped that pond as part of the local drainage system. My father worked for the county maintenance department. Years later, so did I. Culverts, road ditches, small bridges, drainage washouts, stormwater complaints after heavy rain. I did that work for 32 years. So I know one thing better than most people. Water is never just water. It has direction, history, pressure, responsibility. You can move dirt in one afternoon, but if you move water the wrong way, it will spend years proving you wrong. My father used to stand near Willow Pond after storms and point with his shovel. "Watch it, Tom," he would say. "Water always tells the truth. It goes where the land sends it." He was right. Storm water from the upper lots moved through a shallow swale, slowed at the berm, and settled into Willow Pond before releasing gradually through a culvert. That was the whole point. The pond held water so the road ditch did not overflow. It kept the lower yards from washing out. It kept soil from sliding toward the creek. My father knew that. I knew that. The county knew that. Grant Holloway did not care to know it. Grant moved in next door in early May. He bought the old Miller place, which sat higher than mine, just west of the pond. The Millers had lived there for almost 30 years. They understood the land. They knew part of the back acre stayed damp after a hard rain. They did not complain. They did not dig trenches. They did not try to make water disappear. Then Grant bought it. Within 2 weeks, dumpsters were in the driveway. A black contractor truck was parked out front. A landscape crew was tearing up the yard. A drone photographer was flying over the roof, and a sign in the front yard said the property would soon be available as a premium country retreat. That was Grant's plan. He was not moving in. He was turning the Miller place into a luxury short-term rental. New outdoor kitchen, new fire pit, new gravel parking area, new detached garage, new patio lights, new everything. And Grant wanted the backyard to look dry, clean, and expensive. The problem was, the land did not want to cooperate. After rain, water moved through the low swale behind his house and fed Willow Pond. That was how it had worked for decades. Grant saw that swale and called it ugly. He saw Willow Pond and called it standing water. He saw a recorded drainage system and called it a nuisance. The first time he brought it up, I was clearing leaves from the culvert near the pond. Grant walked over in spotless boots, holding a tablet in one hand and a coffee in the other. "You Tom?" he asked. "That depends," I said. He gave me a quick smile. "Grant Holloway. I bought the Miller property." I noticed. He looked past me toward the pond. "That water yours?" I looked at the pond. "It sits on my land." "That's not what I asked. It's the answer that matters." His smile tightened. "I'm putting in a garage pad back there. The ground on my side is staying wet. It has always stayed wet after rain. That doesn't work for what I'm building." I leaned on my rake. "Then build around the drainage." Grant laughed. Not loudly. Just enough to let me know he thought I was simple. "I'm not designing a premium rental around a swamp. It's not a swamp. It looks like one. It's on the county map." He tilted his head. "A mapped pond?" "Yes. Tom, maps don't sell houses. Dry land does." That was the first time I understood him. Grant was not asking about the pond. He was warning me that the pond was in the way of his money. I said, "Don't alter the drainage." He looked over the bank, then toward his property. "I'm improving my land. You can improve your land without draining mine." He smiled again. "We'll see." People like Grant always say that when they have already decided not to listen. Over the next week, I saw survey flags behind his house. Then I saw more flags near the berm behind my pond. Then I saw a contractor walking the slope with a laser level. I went out there and asked what they were doing. The contractor was a younger man named Billy. He looked tired before I even spoke. "Mr. Holloway wants to redirect water away from the garage pad," he said. I pointed to the pond. "That water goes there." He looked at the pond. "That's what he wants to fix." "That is not a problem. That is the drainage path." Billy shrugged. "I just do what's on the work order." "Then make sure the work order doesn't cut that berm." He looked toward Grant's house. "You'll have to talk to him." So I did. Grant came outside holding a printed permit like it was a winning lottery ticket. "Approved," he said. "Garage and driveway improvements. So this drainage conversation is done." I took the paper and looked at it. It was a building permit, nothing more. It allowed a garage. It allowed a driveway extension. It did not allow him to alter a recorded drainage feature. It did not allow him to cut into my land. And it definitely did not allow him to drain Willow Pond. "This permit lets you build a garage," I said. "It doesn't let you move water wherever you want." Grant took the paper back. "You county guys always think paperwork is magic." "No," I said. "We think paperwork is where people hide the rules they don't want to hear." His smile disappeared. "You're going to hold up my project over a frog pond?" "I'm going to protect my land." He looked at the pond again. Same thing. The next morning, I saw Billy move the flags farther from the berm. By sunset, they were back where Grant wanted them. That told me everything. Someone had listened to my warning. Then Grant had overruled it. That night, Grant sent an email to half the neighborhood. I would not have known about it if Carol Jennings had not forwarded it to me. Carol lived 2 houses down. She had no patience for rich men with contractor crews. The subject line was, "Drainage improvement concern." Grant wrote that I was refusing to cooperate with a reasonable drainage solution. He called Willow Pond stagnant runoff. He said it attracted mosquitoes. He said it created odor. He said it lowered neighborhood value. He said my refusal to modernize old drainage habits was placing an unnecessary burden on nearby properties. Then he wrote one sentence that told me exactly what kind of man he was. "Mr. Whitaker appears more interested in protecting a puddle than supporting responsible property improvement." A puddle. That was what he called it. I could have replied to every neighbor. I could have attached the watershed map. I could have explained the drainage system right there. But I had spent too many years with county complaints to make that mistake. When a man lies in writing, you do not interrupt him. You print it. So I printed the email. I put it in a folder, and I waited. Grant thought he had made me look unreasonable. What he had really done was give the county the exact words they would later use against him. 2 days later, I had to drive into town for an appointment. It had rained the night before, so Willow Pond was full. Not flooded, not overflowing, just full, the way it was supposed to be. The willow tree hung over the water. The culvert was clear. The berm held. Everything was doing its job. When I came home that afternoon, I heard water before I saw it. Fast water. Wrong water. Water moving where it had no business moving. I parked the truck and walked behind the house. Willow Pond had dropped nearly 2 feet. The edge was a ring of wet mud. The willow tree roots were exposed on one side. Fresh dirt sat in piles behind the pond. Grass was torn up. Contractor tracks crossed the back slope. And someone had cut a trench straight through the berm. Water rushed through it. It crossed the low corner of Grant's lot. Then it poured into the roadside ditch. I stood there for a few seconds, not speaking. When you know land, you know the difference between damage and accident. This was not an accident. This was a cut. Then Grant walked over from his side, smiling like a man admiring new countertops. "Relax, Tom," he said. "Nobody pays luxury rates to look at a swamp." I looked at the trench, then at the pond, then at him. "You drained a recorded pond." Grant rolled his eyes. "I drained a nuisance." "No, you altered county drainage. It's on my side. The pond is mine to maintain. The berm is part of the mapped system. And your trench changed both." He laughed. "It's water, Tom. It moves." "Yes," I said. "And now you made it move wrong." His face tightened. "You touch that trench. I'll call the sheriff." "I'm not touching it." "Good. I want it documented." He shook his head. "Document all you want. The garage pad is finally drying out." There it was. Not mosquitoes. Not odor. Not neighborhood value. His garage pad. Grant had not drained my pond because he hated water. He drained it because water was standing between him and money. I looked up at the trail camera strapped to the old maple near the pond. I had put it there to watch deer. That week, it had watched something better. Grant followed my eyes. His smile changed. He had emailed the neighbors. He had waived a permit. He had talked to his contractor. But he had forgotten to talk to the camera. I said, "You should have smiled while you were digging." Grant turned away. 10 minutes later, a sheriff's cruiser came down the road. Grant had called first. That did not surprise me. People like Grant like to be the first voice in the official record. Deputy Mark Ellis stepped out. I knew Mark from my county days. He was a calm man. That is useful in a place where people think property lines are feelings. Grant walked toward him quickly. "Deputy, thank you. My neighbor is threatening to interfere with drainage work on my property." Mark looked at Grant, then at me, then at the rushing water. "Tom," he said. "Deputy." Grant blinked. "You two know each other?" Mark ignored him. "What happened?" Grant launched into his version. He said the pond was standing water. He said it was creating a health concern. He said his garage permit was approved. He said the drainage adjustment was on his side. He said I had become hostile. He said I was trying to block property improvement. He used the word safety 4 times. People like Grant always reach for safety when ownership gets inconvenient. When he finished, Mark turned to me. "Tom?" I pointed to the trench. "I'd like the report to show that trench was newly cut." The pond level dropped after it was cut. The berm behind Willow Pond was opened. Water is being redirected toward the roadside ditch. Contractor tracks are visible. 1 marker stake near the berm was moved, and I have not filled, blocked, or altered the trench. Grant scoffed. Marker stake, berm, pond. He makes everything sound official. I looked at him. That is because some things are official before you understand them. Mark stepped closer to the trench. "Did your crew cut this?" Grant hesitated. "They performed drainage improvement. Did they cut this trench?" "They adjusted the flow." Mark wrote that down. Grant did not like that. "This is a civil issue, right?" Mark looked at the moving water. "Maybe, maybe not. If this is part of the county drainage record, stormwater will want to look at it." Grant laughed. "It's a pond," I said. "Good. Then the map will be easy." Mark looked at me. "You have records?" "In my garage." Grant smiled. "Of course he does." I turned to him. "You would have saved a lot of money if you had asked for them first." That evening, I opened my father's metal cabinet. It sat in the garage under a shelf of old coffee cans full of bolts, washers, and nails. The cabinet was ugly, green, dented, too heavy, and organized better than most offices. My father had labeled the drawers himself. House, taxes, culvert, pond, watershed. I opened the watershed drawer. The smell of old paper came out first. Dust, ink, cardboard, rain memory. Inside were the deed, the plat map, aerial photographs, drainage easement records, old county letters, maintenance notes, and the watershed map. I unfolded the map across the workbench. There it was, Willow Pond. Not as a decorative feature, not as a puddle, not as standing water. A recorded stormwater retention pond within the Whitaker parcel. The old drainage path fed it from the upper lots. The berm held the water. The culvert released overflow slowly toward the county ditch. The line was clear. The map was clear. Grant's trench cut straight through the part that made the system work. Then I found the old county letter. It was dated years back, when a developer had asked about nearby drainage. The letter said Willow Pond and its surrounding buffer should not be altered without county stormwater review. My father had underlined that sentence in pencil. Do not alter without review. I read it twice. Then I checked Grant's permit file online. His garage pad sat exactly where the ground stayed damp after heavy rain. His driveway extension ran near the natural drainage path, and his contractor's plan noted improved drainage along the rear slope. Improved drainage. That was a nice way of saying he wanted the water gone before inspection. Then I found the rental listing draft. Grant had posted it early on a local luxury rental site. The property was not live yet, but the preview was public. Premium country retreat. New garage. Dry, newly improved backyard. Private nature view. I stared at that line. Dry, newly improved backyard. That was my pond in his marketing. Not by name, but by effect. Grant had drained my pond to sell dryness. He had turned water damage into an amenity. I printed everything. The map, the permit, the old county letter, the rental preview, Grant's email, photos of the pond before, photos from that afternoon, still frames from the trail camera. The camera had caught the contractor crew at 9:18 that morning. 2 men with shovels, 1 compact excavator, Grant standing near the berm, pointing. At 9:41, the trench opened. At 9:46, water began moving. At 9:52, Grant took a picture with his phone. He had documented his own mistake. I sent the file to the sheriff's office, then to the county stormwater department, then to the permit office handling Grant's garage. By the next morning, I got a call from Elaine Brooks. Elaine worked for County Stormwater and Environmental Compliance. I knew of her. She had a reputation for being polite, right up until someone lied to her. "Mr. Whitaker," she said, "we received your documents. Then you saw the map." "I did. And the trench." "I did." She paused. "Please do not attempt to fill it yourself." "I wasn't planning to." "Good. We are going to inspect the site. The garage permit may need to be paused pending drainage review." I looked out the window at the half-empty pond. I figured, "Do you have the trail camera footage saved?" "Yes. Keep the original." "I have it." Another pause. Then she said, "Mr. Whitaker, Willow Pond is not random standing water. It is recorded." "I know. I am saying that because your neighbor appears not to." I almost laughed. By now, he might be learning. That afternoon, I called Mason Reed. Mason was a civil engineer and surveyor who had worked with the county on drainage complaints for years. He came out with measuring equipment, a tablet, and the tired expression of a man who had seen water moved badly too many times. He walked the pond edge first, then the berm, then the trench, then Grant's garage pad. He did not say much for 20 minutes. Good professionals rarely do. They let the ground talk first. Finally, he stood beside the trench and shook his head. "He cut the control point," Mason said. "That's what I thought. This berm held the pond level. The trench dropped the outlet elevation. That's why the pond drained. Can it be restored? Yes, but not with a shovel and good intentions." He pointed toward the roadside ditch. "You also have erosion starting here. If the next rain hits before this is stabilized, the ditch could carry sediment downstream." I looked toward Grant's house. "And his garage pad? Drier now. Convenient." Mason looked at the rental sign near Grant's driveway. "Expensive kind of convenient." He prepared a short report that evening. It said the trench altered the pond outflow. It said the berm had been cut. It said the pond was part of the recorded drainage system. It said restoration would require engineered fill, compaction, erosion control, native planting, and county inspection. It also said Grant's garage pad benefited from the redirected water. That sentence mattered, because Grant was about to learn that when you move water for profit, the county starts counting. By Thursday, the permit office had paused his garage inspection. Grant found out before lunch. I knew because he came down my driveway red-faced and waving his phone. "What did you do?" he snapped. "I sent the map." "You killed my inspection." "No. The trench did." "This is harassment." "No. This is drainage." He stepped closer. "You have no idea how much money you're costing me." I looked toward the pond. "You should have thought about cost before you drained something you didn't own. I didn't touch your land. The pond is mine. The berm is recorded. And your trench changed the flow." He laughed through his teeth. "You're talking like this is federal land." "No, Grant. I'm talking like it's documented." His eyes narrowed. "You're going to regret this." "No," I said. "I'm going to document it." He walked away. That evening, Carol called. "He's telling people you're blocking his rental launch," she said. "He blocked it himself. He says the pond was a mosquito pit." "Did he mention the county map?" "No. He will." The inspection happened Friday morning. Grant had expected a simple permit walkthrough. He got something else. Elaine Brooks arrived first in a county truck, then Mason Reed, then Deputy Ellis, then a man from the permit office. Grant's contractor was already there. So was Grant's rental manager, Lisa. She kept looking at her phone like money was leaking out of it. I walked over with my folder. Grant stood near his garage pad, trying to look calm. He had that tight smile people wear when they think confidence can outvote evidence. "As you can see," Grant said to Elaine, "the drainage issue has been corrected." Elaine looked toward the pond. "Corrected?" "Yes. The standing water has been relieved." I said. "Moved." Grant turned. "Tom, this is not your inspection." I looked at the muddy pond bank. "It became mine when your trench drained my pond." Elaine raised a hand. "Let's keep this simple. Mr. Holloway, do you have written approval to alter the drainage behind Willow Pond?" Grant blinked. "It's not county drainage." Elaine opened a folded map on the hood of her truck. "It is on this map." Grant looked at it like it had appeared from another planet. Elaine placed her finger on the paper. "This is Willow Pond. This is the drainage path. This is the berm. This is the county ditch. And this is your parcel." She moved her finger slowly. "The trench cut here." Mason placed flags along the old drainage path. Then he placed red markers along the trench. The difference was obvious. The original path fed the pond. The new trench emptied it. Grant crossed his arms. "It's just a pond." Elaine looked at him. "Then why did your garage plan change after the trench was cut?" Lisa looked up from her phone. Grant did not answer, so the evidence started landing. First, the county watershed map. Elaine confirmed Willow Pond was part of the recorded drainage system. Then the deed and plat. They showed the pond sat within my property. Then Elaine held up the old county letter my father had kept for years. She read the underlined sentence out loud. Do not alter without county stormwater review. Then she looked at Grant. That sentence was written before your rental listing existed. Grant's face tightened. Then came the trail camera footage. Deputy Ellis had still frames printed. They showed Grant pointing at the berm. They showed the excavator cutting the trench. They showed water flowing out. Grant said, they were improving drainage. One of the contractors looked at the ground. Elaine turned to him. What did the work order say? The contractor hesitated. Grant said, you don't have to answer that. Deputy Ellis said, he can answer a county question if he wants to. The contractor sighed. It said redirect water away from the garage pad. The air went still. That was the first crack. The kind everybody hears. Elaine looked at Grant. Redirect water away from the garage pad by cutting through a recorded pond berm? Grant said, that's not what I told them. The contractor looked up. You told us the pond was nuisance water and the county wouldn't care. Lisa closed her eyes. That was the second crack. I placed Grant's email on the hood of the truck. The one calling Willow Pond a puddle. Then I placed the rental preview beside it. Dry, newly improved backyard. Private nature view. Lisa stared at the page. That listing is not live yet, she said. It was public enough for me to print, I said. Elaine read the line. Dry, newly improved backyard. Then she looked at Grant. You advertised the condition created by the unauthorized drainage work. Grant's face went pale. It's marketing language. I looked at him. No. It's my pond in your marketing language. Lisa stepped away from the group and made a phone call. This time she did not lower her voice enough. No. We can't launch it next weekend, she said. There is an active drainage violation on the property. Grant turned toward her. Lisa. She held up one hand and kept talking. No. Do not post the backyard photos. Cancel the first weekend bookings. We cannot advertise this as a premium country retreat until the county clears it. The silence after that was different. It was not just legal anymore. It was money. Real money. Grant heard it. The contractor heard it. The permit officer heard it. The neighbors near the road heard it. And I watched Grant realize that the pond he called a puddle had just reached into his calendar, his listing, and his bank account. Lisa lowered the phone and looked at him. I'm pulling the launch, she said. No guest is paying premium rates for a property under a drainage violation. That was the third crack, and it was the one Grant felt in his wallet. Mason spoke next. The pond level dropped because this trench lowered the outflow point. The berm needs to be rebuilt. The trench needs to be filled and compacted. Erosion control needs to be installed before the next major rain. Elaine nodded. The garage and driveway permit will remain paused until drainage compliance is restored. Grant snapped. You can't do that. The permit officer finally spoke. We can, and we are. Grant turned on me. You cost me my launch. I shook my head. No, I cost you the lie. Elaine explained the situation clearly. No one was being arrested for owning a pond. No one was losing a house. But Grant had altered recorded drainage without approval. He had cut a berm that controlled pond level. He had redirected flow toward the county ditch. He had exposed the area to erosion. And he had tied that alteration to a permitted garage and driveway project. So the county issued a stop work order. The garage inspection was frozen. The driveway approval was paused. The trench had to be stabilized. The berm had to be rebuilt. The pond level had to be restored. A drainage engineer had to submit a restoration plan. Native vegetation had to be replanted along the disturbed bank. The willow roots had to be protected. And Grant's rental launch had to wait until the site was compliant. Grant looked at the half-empty pond. Then at the map. Then at Elaine. All this over standing water? Elaine folded the county map slowly. No, Mr. Holloway. Over unauthorized drainage work. That line ended the argument. Not because Grant agreed. Because everyone else understood. A man can argue with a neighbor. He can argue with a contractor. He can argue with a rental manager. But it is hard to argue with a county map, a trail camera, a work order, a permit pause, and water running the wrong way in front of witnesses. The next 2 weeks were expensive for Grant. Moving water had taken him one morning. Putting it back correctly took engineers, inspectors, restoration crews, and 6 invoices he never saw coming. The trench could not just be filled with loose dirt. Mason had to prepare a restoration plan. The berm had to be rebuilt with compacted fill. The outflow elevation had to be restored. Erosion control fabric had to be installed. Native grasses and wetland plants had to be replanted along the disturbed bank. Sediment had to be removed from the roadside ditch. The willow tree needed root protection. The garage pad had to be rechecked. The driveway drainage plan had to be redesigned, and every step required inspection. The numbers came out in pieces. $28,000 for pond restoration and berm reconstruction, $16,000 for drainage engineering and erosion control, $12,000 for native planting and soil stabilization, $9,500 for willow root protection and landscape repair, $18,000 for garage and driveway redesign, $11,000 in permit, inspection, and resubmission fees, $15,000 in lost rental launch income and booking refunds, $10,500 in legal, survey, and documentation costs. Every number came from the same mistake. Grant had tried to drain my pond out of his budget. Now the county was putting it back in. By the time the restoration plan was approved, Grant was staring at a loss of more than $120,000. All because he thought water would stop being recorded if he called it a nuisance. The day they rebuilt the berm, half the neighborhood found a reason to walk by. People checked mailboxes twice, walked dogs slowly, stood at the end of driveways pretending to talk about the weather. Grant stood near his garage pad with his arms crossed. He looked smaller without his confidence. The crew worked under Elaine's supervision. They filled the trench, compacted the soil, reset the berm, placed erosion fabric, seeded the bank, planted native grasses, and installed a temporary barrier to keep sediment from washing into the ditch. As the outflow was corrected, the pond began to hold water again. Not all at once. Water takes its time coming home. But it came. Grant finally walked over while Mason was checking the final elevation. "You cost me $120,000 over a pond," he said. I looked at Willow Pond, at the mud line, at the willow tree, at the place where my mother used to sit with a cup of tea. "No," I said. "You lost that because the county map remembered what you tried to erase." He had no answer. Elaine handed Grant the restoration notice and compliance schedule. Deputy Ellis gave him a copy of the updated incident report. It documented the trench, the berm cut, the camera footage, the contractor statement, the permit issue, the recorded drainage feature, the rental launch delay, and the restoration requirement. The civil side would be handled through claims, insurance, and legal letters. But the public part was already over. Everyone had seen the map. Everyone had heard the old county letter. Everyone had seen the trench. Everyone had heard Lisa cancel the launch. And everyone had seen the water return. Grant never apologized. But he signed the acknowledgement. It stated that Willow Pond sat on my property. It confirmed the drainage feature was recorded. It stated the trench had been unauthorized. And it made clear that future drainage changes required county review. He paid toward the restoration. He paid the engineering costs. He paid the permit fees. His rental launch was delayed, and the listing no longer promised a dry, newly improved backyard. That was enough. Because I did not need Grant to respect the pond. I needed the county record to protect it. A month later, Willow Pond looked like itself again. Not perfect. Restored land never looks untouched right away. The new grass was thin. The bank still showed scars. The willow tree needed support straps, but the water was back. The frogs were back. The ducks came back too, walking around the bank like inspectors with feathers. Carol came by one evening and stood beside me near the pond. "He made it sound like you were protecting a puddle," she said. I looked at the water. "A puddle dries up." She nodded toward the small county marker near the bank. "And that? That comes with paperwork." A few neighbors apologized over the next few weeks. Some had believed Grant's email. Some had repeated his words without checking. Stagnant water. Mosquito pit. Old man protecting a puddle. I did not hold it against them forever. People believe confidence when they do not have documents. That is why documents matter. That fall, I put up a small sign near the restored berm. Nothing dramatic. No threats. No big red letters. Just a simple metal sign mounted beside the county marker. Mapped drainage feature. No unauthorized alteration. Every time I pass it, I think of my father. I think of him standing after a storm, pointing with his shovel, teaching me that water always tells the truth. Grant thought he could dig a trench and make the truth run somewhere else. But water remembers. Land remembers. And county maps remember longer than rich men think. So tell me, if your neighbor drained your pond, cut through the berm, changed the flow, called it an improvement, and tried to sell the dry backyard as part of his rental profit, would you have fought him with a shovel? Or would you have done what I did? Kept quiet, opened the file, called the county, and let one map cost him $120,000?